Hey, yo, Fro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. If you are a YouTube user, make sure you enable notifications so you know every time we have a new episode posted of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. While you're at it, if you are sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 every year for the latest and greatest wrestling video game for whatever game system you own, stop immediately and go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook, where you can create your own wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. And if you go to Wrestler Unstoppable right now and search up Universal Wrestling Evolution, that would be my corporation, we are getting ready to launch our G1 Climax tournament for the summer of 2018. If you are all in for the all-in show, make sure you get your all-in merchandise by going to frowrestling.com, scrolling to the all-in section, and clicking on their merchandise link and getting all your gear ahead of the show. If you want to become a member of the Fro Wrestling Podcast family and you want your name in the shout outs, like our buddy Harold in St. Louis, how you doing, Harold? Always great to hear from you. Then make sure you check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast and sign up today. Don't forget the loyalty rewards program. Any $25 contributor gets to co-host an episode of Going Live with me, and $10 a month contributors get entered into a drawing to also co-host an episode of Going Live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Going Live of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget, the fan voting in the Final Four of the All-Time Dream Match Tournament is going on right now. Voting closes tonight at midnight, so make sure you get your votes in there at frowrestling.com. Click on fan vote and cast your votes. Our Final Four are an amazing pair of matches. Ravishing Rick Rude taking on Seth Rollins, and Braun Strowman taking on Kurt Angle. Make sure you get your votes in. I'm curious to see who you guys put in the final championship round of that tournament. We'll be taking your questions and comments through the chat feature, whether you get us through Spreaker, iTunes, Stitcher, whatever streaming service you use to listen to the podcast, or if you go directly to frowrestling.com, where it's easy to get into the chat feature. Make sure you send us your comments, questions, along with your name, so we can give you credit when you give us a comment live on the show. If you want to send us a question for a future episode, go to the Fro Wrestling Soundoff Line at 267-642-1160. That way we can get your questions, your comments, your concerns, whatever you want to talk about in our talk-to-text service. You talk, it texts it to us, we can respond and get your information into the show. Again, make sure you put your name on your comment so that we can give you credit for it. Don't forget, if you've never come to the Fro Wrestling Podcast before, go to frowrestling.com, where you can preview all the topics coming to this show. It's a great way to come up with those questions that you want to give us on the Sound Off Line. So, today's episode, we have a few things we really need to address, and a few that I hate to address. And I'm actually going to start there, because it's been kind of an emotional week for diehard fans of the WWE universe, and who have been with WWE since 2003. In 2003, WWE ran one of their seasons, season 3 of Tough Enough, and a amazing talent came out of that show. And I'm not talking about Johnny Mundo or John Morrison. He's fantastic as well, but his co-winner, John Morrison won that year, but his co-winner was a man named Matt Cappotelli. Matt Cappotelli looked like he was going to be a real bright spot going forward in the world of professional wrestling. Unfortunately, in 2006, was diagnosed with a brain tumor that ended his wrestling career. He fought through that. He conquered the brain tumor in 2006, and unfortunately, it came back a little while ago, and we've talked about this once before in the podcast. He was really trying to fight through this, but sadly, this week, Matt Cappotelli did pass away from his brain tumor, but he absolutely was the definition of a warrior. This guy did not give up to the very end. He was trying to spread his message of positivity and being, very much focused on getting better and trying to be an inspiration for others. I had the privilege of talking to him several times on Facebook while he was going through this, and he was always so positive. No matter what the challenge was, he was always such a positive influence, and it was really emotional for me when I turned on my computer the other day and saw that he had sadly passed away. So my most sincere thoughts and condolences and well wishes are with his family. We all hope that he is in a better place and is no longer in pain. But what an amazing human being first, and a great talent somewhere further down the list. But like I said, our wishes to his family and his wife and everybody. Moving on to one of the topics from this week that we can't can't be overstated the importance of this enough. Brock Lesnar, apparently, as of right now, is being considered to be out of SummerSlam. That's the word going around. Vince McMahon does not want to have Brock at SummerSlam because if he does, the crowd at SummerSlam is going to turn on Roman again. See, the plan is keep Brock off television for an extended period of time so people hate Brock. And then what happens is when Roman comes out and conquers Brock, that the people will love Roman. That was the plan. Here's the problem with that plan. If it was 1985, it would have worked to a charm. Absolutely. Everybody would have been on board. The problem is it's 2018 and Vince McMahon has not adjusted with the times. He doesn't understand the technology and he doesn't know how to get people in his own corporation to keep their mouth shut about what's coming. So here's the issue, and I've been going back and forth with people about this all week. If you go to FroWrestling.com and click on In Fro's Corner, my blog, you'll find I put an article up only yesterday about this exact topic. I put up Brock is a crock, but Vince McMahon's the villain, and that's the truth. Brock Lesnar's championship reign is a total crock of nonsense. It doesn't mean anything, because Brock's not defending his title. However, Brock Lesnar is not the person who deserves your anger and your ire. Brock Lesnar does something that every one of you and I do when we get a job. We go in, we interview, we figure out what we think we're worth, and we negotiate a price with our employer. Brock walked into the contract negotiations earlier this year with WWE, and they determined a price and a number of appearances for Brock's contract. You can't be upset that Brock Lesnar doesn't defend the title and doesn't show up at Raw because he's not supposed to. He's not getting paid to. It's not like he could just say, you know what, I'm going to Raw this week. I'm going to bring the Universal title to Raw this week. He can't do that. He's not paid to do that. As a matter of fact, he would get himself in trouble if he did do that, because it would break the kayfabe around all of his mystique of his character. He can't show up on Raw. It's not because he hates the business. There have been many talents in the past. Goldberg is a great example, who were not in love with the pro wrestling industry, but they still did what they were contracted to do. That's what he's doing. Goldberg's not a diehard wrestling fan. He doesn't want to be in the ring and be a technical masterpiece every time he's out there. Neither does Brock. Brock does this as a job, and many talents of the past did the same thing. The issue is that Vince McMahon thinks he's smarter than the audience, and he's so stuck on getting Roman Reigns to be the face of his company that he's actually destroying a segment of his audience. And here's why. We want to see the Universal Championship on Raw. We should not be seeing the Intercontinental Championship be the number one title on the brand. Since the Universal title came out, you had Finn Balor win the championship and have to relinquish it a night later because he got hurt. You had Kevin Owens, who was handed the championship by Triple H. We had Goldberg, who's been gone for 12 years, show up and take the championship, and Kevin Owens never get a rematch. Finn Balor never get a rematch. Then you have Goldberg lose the championship to Brock Lesnar and never get a rematch. And then you have Brock Lesnar, who never appears. What does that Universal Championship really mean? The WWE Championship means so much more, and even that had issues last year when Jinder Mahal held the title, which I had no problem with, but many other people did. So what Vince McMahon doesn't seem to get is, by keeping Brock Lesnar off TV, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's not working. You want to take Brock off TV to build up the popularity of Roman Reigns. But in 2018, people like you and I listen to shows like this and tune into every website there is in the world, and we find out what's going on months ahead of time. We knew about Brock versus Roman Reigns a year before it happened. And when we do that, we take away from the mystique and the opportunity to have a great experience at shows like WrestleMania, SummerSlam. And that's the problem that Vince doesn't seem to get. The minute we find out that he's purposely keeping Brock Lesnar off television to beef up Roman Reigns means when Roman Reigns walks out at SummerSlam, we are going to boo the snot out of him. You know why? Because we don't want Roman Reigns, because that's what Vince wants. It's not what we want. Right now, there's a plethora of other talents that we want to be world champion. I promise you this. If WWE changed its course and said Brock Lesnar will appear at SummerSlam and he's going to face Seth Rollins, everybody would be on board. If they said that Brock Lesnar is going to appear at SummerSlam, he's going to face Braun Strowman, everybody would be on board. If he was going to come to SummerSlam and he was going to face Finn Balor, everybody would be on board. If he was going to come to SummerSlam and face Daniel Bryan, everybody would be on board. Or AJ Styles. You know, the problem is when you force feed us Roman Reigns time and again, Vince McMahon makes it so people stop caring about his product. They stop caring about the Universal Championship. They stop caring about Brock Lesnar. I've seen all the memes on every social media network there is. Everybody hates Brock Lesnar right now. Brock hasn't done anything wrong. He hates his job just like you and I do half the time. But he still goes out and does his job when he's supposed to. He does everything he's supposed to do. People get upset because he goes out and has these 2-minute squash matches. That's what he's booked to do. You can't be upset that a guy does exactly what you're paying him to do. That's like if you go to work and someone says, hey, listen, I'm giving you a 40-hour-a-week schedule, but you better show up 45 or 50 or everybody else is going to be mad at you. Well, you're not showing up for the extra 5 to 10 hours if you're not getting paid for it. Nobody would. You'd be insane to. None of us do that. That's all Brock Lesnar's doing. If you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at Vince McMahon for signing a deal like that. Here's the thing. If Brock Lesnar doesn't love wrestling, and if you go to him and say, listen, we need you to be a full-time wrestler, and he says, I'm not doing that, I'm not into that. Fine. We're not signing you. We'll save the $5 to $7 million base salary every year, and we'll go build new stars. But if you're going to give him a contract like that, then you better put him on television. Or pay him more money to get him to come on television. He just signed a $1 billion deal with NBC. Put him on television. Pay him whatever you have to do. Give us Brock Lesnar and the Universal title. If you're not willing to do that, don't sign him in the first place. But all the blame for that falls on Vince McMahon, not Brock Lesnar. And Vince McMahon's other issue is he keeps changing his mind on a dime. We have this multi-man match built up for Extreme Rules, and then they cancel it because Brock's not going to be at SummerSlam. Follow me on this. At some point, we have to crown a new number one contender to the Universal Championship. It really doesn't matter when you crown the number one contender. It just means that whenever the champion defends, it'll be against that number one contender. So why does it matter if Brock is out of SummerSlam? What does that impact on Extreme Rules? He wasn't going to be at Extreme Rules anyways. So why not still have the multi-person match? You still crown your number one contender. Sure, they don't get their shot at SummerSlam, but you at least know who you're going with. Then you could spend all that build up to the SummerSlam season with that number one contender trash talking Brock Lesnar, why he's not here, why he's, he hates the business, he wants to go back to UFC, whatever story you want to tell. You can do that. And the reality is, people would love that because it seems more real. You still should be having the multi-person match. You should not be having Roman Reigns win. Someone, either Seth Rollins or Finn Balor or somebody like that, should be winning. And then be waiting for Brock. And if Brock never comes back to WWE, my understanding is he has one more contracted date on his requirements for this contract. So they don't want to waste it on SummerSlam if he's just going to be booed. Vince really thinks it's just SummerSlam where that would be booed. That's so erroneous in thought in 2018. You could bring him out in Sheboygan and the people are going to boo Roman Reigns. You could bring him out in Vanuatu and the people are going to boo Roman Reigns. You could bring him out in Germany and the people are going to boo Roman Reigns. WWE is an international media conglomerate. Everybody in the world knows WWE. So it doesn't matter where you do it. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. If Roman Reigns is there against Brock Lesnar, people are going to boo Roman Reigns. We don't want Roman Reigns. I don't know how he can't get this through his head. And I said in my article this week that it's not going to fix itself until Triple H takes over. He clearly has a handle on the pulse of the wrestling industry better than Vince by a long shot. And that's why WWE, for right now, is not doing as well as it could be, but when he takes over, will probably soar into the stratosphere. Triple H is very calculated in who he signs, how he brings them through the system, how he moves them to the main roster. The only issue I have with Triple H is that he allows people to come to the main roster and then lets the creative geniuses on Raw and SmackDown bungle their careers on Raw and SmackDown. Why in heaven's name has Sami Zayn not been put in a better position than he has been since being called to the main roster? Why did even Tyler Breeze, who is NXT champion, gets typecast as a loser from the minute he got to the main roster? I understand you can't have all premium, top-notch superstars. But you know what? Leave them in NXT then. Let NXT have the best workers in the business and have Raw and SmackDown have the biggest stars in the business. I don't care how you do it, but clearly the creative geniuses on Raw and SmackDown are not able to book NXT talents when they come up in a correct way. Just look at this past week. Sanity finally comes out and has a match on SmackDown and they lose. Why would you defeat Sanity in their debut match? The Authors of Pain were off television for a better part of a month. Why did you bring them to the main roster if you had no creative plan beyond a tag team Money in the Bank match that didn't even happen? Horrible planning, horrible booking. That does not fall on Triple H. That falls on the creative teams of both Raw and SmackDown. Okay, going to move on because I could sit here and talk about Brock Lesnar and horrible WWE booking all night long. Ring of Honor, best in the world. Now, I want to talk about a great show. Ring of Honor knows what they're doing. The best in the world show last night was off the charts. I have to say, thoroughly shocked. I'm thrilled with the show. I think they did a really great job of establishing Jay Lethal as once again a top contender for the Ring of Honor World Championship. I would not be surprised to see him get that championship within the next 6 months. But what I am a little frustrated with, don't get me wrong, card top to bottom was fantastic. I thought the 6-man tag team championship match was great. The 8 women of honor match was fantastic. I thought that the television championship match was fantastic. The Bully Reg segment was great. All that stuff was great. I had a problem with 2 matches. I had a problem with the Young Bucks being defeated by the Briscoes, and I had a problem with Cody not winning the Ring of Honor Championship. And here is why. Cody is supposed to have challenged for the Ring of Honor Championship, the New Japan IWGP Championship, and then the NWA Championship. Right now would have been the perfect time to let him have the Ring of Honor title, the NWA title, and the IWGP Championship because it lends credibility to all 3 at the same time. You could take the belt off him afterwards, but this was an opportunity to do something very special. So what is the world supposed to think? Dalton Castle is better than Kenny Omega if Cody beats Kenny for the championship? No, now nobody expects Cody to defeat Kenny Omega. And I'm not going to say that they expected it before, but they expected it more if he walked in as Ring of Honor champion. You expected Cody to win the NWA championship if he walks into All In as Ring of Honor champion, going champion versus Nick Aldis. I actually would see him winning the NWA title in that scenario. After last night losing the match, I don't see that happening. Now, granted, Cody was not the one who took the pin. I understand they're doing some turmoil with Cody and Marty Scurll, but I was just not happy with the way they booked it. I thought this would have been a good time to take the championship from Dalton Castle. And if you didn't want to put it on Cody, put it on Marty Scurll and have Cody win it before All In somewhere. That's what they should have done. Instead, Dalton Castle's still the champion, and he's a great champion. I'm not knocking Dalton Castle. It's not his fault that this whole booking scenario is what it is right now. But I thought they could have gone a different direction. The Young Bucks, same thing, should have been booked very strong. They're the IWGP World Tag Team Champions, and you have them lose to the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. It makes the IWGP Championships look weaker, and I have a problem with that when you're trying to keep a relationship with that company. Now, maybe they did that on purpose with all the conversation about WWE and New Japan potentially working together in the future. Maybe they want their championships to look stronger than New Japan. But that's a great partnership, and it's brought a lot of new viewers to their program, and they really ought to think about fostering that instead of always pushing their homegrown talent to the top. I'm just saying, it's my opinion. Enzo, in the news this week, he revealed some original Cruiserweight Championship plans for the night of Raw 25 ahead of when the news broke. The tweets went out about his alleged sexual assault issue. So apparently, Enzo was supposed to lose the Cruiserweight Championship to, of all people, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. And Nia Jax was supposed to win it back for him before the end of the evening. What a bizarre booking decision, but I can see them doing something stupid like that. In addition, he made it clear that he was basically booked for multiple segments throughout the evening, and he was going to be a focal part of the show. And then because of the news breaking at like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night, the whole Raw 25 episode had to be rewritten. That's probably why such an important Raw episode was so horrible. You know, people to this day are talking about what a flop and a great opportunity, and they totally flopped. Well, that's probably a big part of why. Because of that situation. So, you know, crazy how things turn out. Enzo now being real one and being a rapper, and he's not even doing much wrestling now. But it would be interesting to know how things would have played out had those allegations not come out. Though allegations that he's been exonerated of. You know, I know there's people out there, conspiracy theorists, who say that this was, you know, him getting away with something. It doesn't matter. Our legal system has spoken. He's free man. So we need to move past it. All right? Moving on, future home of WWE NXT is in the news this week. Fox Sports 1 apparently on the verge of making the announcement that NXT television will be coming to Fox Sports 1 in 2019. That would be a huge leap for WWE. The only concern I have is what happens with the block of time that you have on the network for NXT currently. You want to keep that because it's some of the highest rated segments in the company. On the network. So what do you do with NXT if you move that over to Fox Sports 1? You have to have something that is of equal value. Now, some people are talking about maybe that's where you slot in the UK version of NXT. Maybe that's where you put a women's only show or 205 Live, make it more prominent on the network. But you really have a reputation for NXT being pretty much the best product in the company right now. So it needs to be on network television, but it also needs to have a presence on the network big enough to sustain the network. I think NXT is the driving force behind the subscribers on the network, far more than the pay-per-views. I think it's the NXT brand. Chris Jericho discussed this week his future with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Interesting comments about there are several other matches on the horizon. There are other people he wants to work with. Now, originally it was a one-off, and he and Vince had a conversation, and Vince was all good with it. And then there was a little bit of stress there when he was going back to face Naito, and he wins the Intercontinental Championship. Clearly, that means he'll be back, and he's made comments about how he thinks he's going to get a phone call one of these days about, hey, dude, what are you doing here? You know, you're a WWE guy. Why do you keep doing these matches over there? Well, now, apparently, there's multiple matches that he still wants to have for New Japan. Now, I put out, as I've said before, I put up what I would do if I was booking for New Japan. It's on in Fro's Corner. If you go to FroWrestling.com, you can look up how to book New Japan Pro Wrestling. I told you what I would do all the way through Wrestle Kingdom. And it maximizes the use of Chris Jericho on the brand, brings a lot of eyes to their program, and that's the way I would go. But I don't know if that's what we're going to see. But at least we know. I very strongly feel we'll see him face Evil at his next appearance, because Evil is the one who came out to rescue Naito at Dominion. And I think at some point we'll see him face Kazuchika Okada, which I think would be a great match. I actually would prefer Okada win after the IWGP United States Championship, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But definitely going to see Chris Jericho in New Japan a little bit more. Somebody you probably will not see is Rey Mysterio, who in the news this week is working on finalizing the last tidbits of his 3-year contract with WWE. He was announced as the surprise character for pre-orders for WWE 19. And so I'm just saying, it's a matter of time. And hopefully they listen to Rey Mysterio and they put together that Latino World Order faction of some sort so he could bring more exposure to those Latino talents that they've got. Whether it's 205 Live or the main roster, they've got an incredibly deep, rich lucha history in their company right now, and they don't emphasize it enough. They're amazing talents. Give them the platform to showcase what they can do. Rey Mysterio looks like he's in some of the best shape of his life. I think WWE could do no wrong by pushing that entire group together. Some of the former Impact Wrestling talents were at the WWE Performance Center this week. Robbie E., formerly of Impact Wrestling, Laura Von Ness, Chelsea Green was also there. She's currently dating Zack Ryder in WWE. Now, he was on Twitter making jokes about she's signing with WWE. I think they should sign her. I think she's a great talent, and they'd be missing the boat if they did not bring her in, especially with the Mae Young Classic coming up. If they're really smart, they would be going after people like, Velvet Sky, Angelina Love, real names for the Mae Young Classic, but apparently they haven't done that yet. But these people look like they have a shot to make the roster. I would love to see Robbie E. make it. I'd like to see Mr. Spectacular go there as well. But the other one that I find very interesting is Devon Dudley. I said Bubba Ray. Devon Dudley's children, his sons, were there at the Performance Center trying out as well. And they look great in the ring. If you have never seen them, take a look at them on YouTube. Hopefully they get an opportunity as well. Last tidbit for tonight, Vince McMahon, how much money is he really going to spend on this XFL project? Well, apparently the number is out, and he is anticipating spending another $500 million on the XFL. I know the guy likes football. I know he really wants to make this thing work, but $500 million? Good heavens. But they were talking about the biggest expenditures being the managers, the players' salaries, and things of that nature. They actually put out that they roughly, the players' salaries would be roughly in the neighborhood of $75,000, which is substantial considering arena players don't make that. So I'd be curious to see how it rolls out. But he seems very much committed to this. He already put $100 million in to create his company, and now it looks like he's going to have another $500 million worth of expenditures to make sure that it runs at least through 3 seasons. That would be interesting to me, and hopefully it works out. I think it could be a battle, like a proving ground for, underappreciated football talent that can then potentially make the leap to the NFL, much like Jose Cortez was a kicker with the 49ers after he had a successful run in the XFL. Tommy Maddox left the XFL to go back to the NFL. He hate me. Everybody always remembers he hate me. But Rashaan Salaam was a member of the XFL. So there was a lot of people who got at least a shot because of their XFL exposure to go back to the NFL. So maybe that's what they can do with this as well. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode where we'll run down all the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks as always go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects we always use in our shows. Today's podcast, as always, sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you're looking for your next career move and you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you so much for taking a few moments with us this evening. If you want to check out the latest wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsj101sports.com. And if you want to get my editorial articles, go to frowrestling.com and click on In Fro's Corner, where right now you can check out the article about Vince McMahon and Brock Lesnar. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, take care and have a great night.